An Airbnb host just lost an eviction case against a guest who's been staying for 542 days without paying, and it's rocked the internet. There are people on both sides of this fence, and I will even argue that the landlord/Airbnb host might have had it coming. And I know I'm going to make some people angry with those statements because this is a channel for Airbnb hosts to learn to do better and to grow as Airbnb hosts. But in this story is a cautionary tale, a stark warning about doing things the wrong way and the cost of doing them the wrong way. Welcome back, YouTube world. Let me catch you up. There is a guest on Airbnb that stayed for 6 months and paid and stopped paying. She hasn't paid in over 18 months. She claims there's repair issues to the property. The owner of the property is a surgeon. He owns this $2.6 something million property, and he built an ADU, or a guest house. And it's in the guest house that the guest is staying. Now, this guest refuses to leave. The landlord/Airbnb host took the guest to eviction court, and the judge said that he has no right to evict this guest. And here's the merits of that. This guest house was built outside of code without the proper permits. It probably doesn't have a certificate of occupancy, which means you're not allowed to collect rent on it. So he can't sue the guest for back rent because they don't owe rent. This actually works the same way in Philadelphia. If a landlord doesn't have a certificate of occupancy and this welcome book full of all the things that a tenant needs to know, he can't collect rent. He actually has to get you to sign that you've received these things. Otherwise, if he ever wanted to evict you for non-payment of rent, he can't. Blue states have a lot of tenant protections. So now both sides are erupting. There's a very activated tenant-centered argument to this where people are saying she's in the right, she should ride it out until she has to leave. Sure. There's as just of an activated landlord-centered argument, which is that no matter whether or not he's completely in the wrong, he still has right to his own property. And then, of course, TikTok is going nuts, talking about forcible evictions, removing a dead body, stuff like that. That is TikTok. But that begs the question, what can a landlord do and not do in this case? And if this surgeon gentleman decided to do some wrong stuff, he'd be in a much harder situation than he is in now. Let me tell you what a landlord cannot do if he wanted to remove somebody like this. If you're ever in this situation, you'll want to know this stuff. A landlord cannot shut off utilities. That is electricity and heat and water. And if he ever offered internet during the stay, he also has to continue to offer internet. He can't shut that off either. Even if he defaults on his own payments, he's still required as a landlord to provide that stuff. A landlord also must keep the home completely secure. You cannot remove locks, you cannot remove doors, you cannot remove windows, you cannot obstruct a window or door's ability to safely close and lock. You cannot forcibly remove a guest, alive or dead. You can't, believe it or not. And you cannot harass, disparage, threaten, coerce, blackmail, commit any crimes against the person just because they won't leave. But did you know that landlords actually find ways to do this stuff still? There's a high-rise across the street from me that mass evicted people. It's actually a nuts story. The building's called the Cirque, and we don't know if it's illicit or not, but let me tell you and you can make the decision. The building had a decline in tenant quality. Let's call it that. The building used to be on the up and up, and then there was crimes, even murders happening. There's a lot of illicit behavior. My neighbor at my penthouse next door told me while he was there that this kind of stuff was going on. Another friend of mine at the same time lived there when they started to evict everybody, and here's how they did it. There was an accident. All of a sudden, the sprinkler system went off and flooded one side of the building for multiple floors, like a dozen floors. Every single floor from top to bottom had to be moved out, so they had to be renovated. Everything had to be replaced. It was a big fiasco. And insurance paid for it. But what happened is they told people you have to be gone within the next week or within the next month, within the next 5 days. There is no way out of this. We will remove you if you don't move because it's an emergency or something like that. I've seen landlords on a small scale do something like this, where they will claim that there's been a security breach and they will change the locks, or they will go in to do emergency repairs and they just won't leave. Or they'll go in to do emergency repairs and say, oh, there's something wrong with the window. This window broke, and they remove the window. They'll say, oh, there was an accident. We had to do something that's not normal, but we did it. And it's a way for them to bypass self-help eviction regulations. I will say this is not remarkably common in Texas, but I had 3 different landlords that I went into lawsuits with against in Philadelphia, all for them doing illicit behavior, and I came out good. I'm not allowed to say exactly how that went. I'm pretty sure that I'm not allowed to brag too much or disparage the other people or even talk about how much money I've been paid in any or all 3 of these. I can't talk about that. But I'm happy. And I can tell you that I learned a lot about beating bad landlords in the process. I've been on both sides of this fence because I've even had to remove people from my Airbnb units that refused to pay. And let me tell you how I did it. Call it a confession. And for my confession, I just ask for a subscribe because I will teach you everything that I know. good, bad, and ugly. Here's the secret about Airbnb guests that I don't think anybody is talking about. The difference between them and a regular squatter. When somebody squats in your home, they move in their furniture, they move in their kids, their pets, their plants, and then they stop paying rent and they find a way to stay somehow. But they moved into an empty box that they made their home. An Airbnb guest that moves in with a couple bits of luggage, and that's it. They don't move in a couch, a TV, a bed, a dresser, a stove. I don't think you can remove the appliances like the stove or the refrigerator. I'm pretty sure as a landlord, those have to stay. But I've done this multiple times. I've called the police and said, hey, somebody has moved into my place and is trying to claim squatters' rights, whatever. But this is also my home and I want to remove my property and move out. And this person has made threats against me and I need a police escort to remove my stuff. So I show up with a box truck and 2 cops. I go in, I take the bed, I take the couch, I take the TV, I take the dishes, I take everything I'm allowed to take, and all of a sudden there's nothing to live in. Nothing at all. And that guest no longer has a place to sleep but on the floor. And that person has a plan, right? And you just screwed up their plan. That person will go book another Airbnb and go find a place with a couch and a TV and a bed because that's cheaper than buying their own stuff. And they're going to try their trick on somebody else. And if you don't own any furniture, there's nothing that you can do about it. You don't see millionaire squatters. People who have money for furniture and a yacht and they just choose not to pay. Every single person I've ever seen squat, this is a system because they don't have the money to pay the rent. But to circle back to the surgeon homeowner ADU guy, he cut some corners. And this is where you guys might be mad at me for saying this after everything I just said that could be helpful. I'm still gonna hurt your feelings, maybe, all right? He screwed up. He cut corners. He wanted to build an ADU and make money on Airbnb with his spare property, and he did some stuff outside of the rules. And there's something called a sophisticated actor in business. I learned this the hard way in my Philadelphia lawsuits. If you enter into business, you are taking on risk. You are assuming that risk. And in doing so, you are making the statement that you are intelligent enough to assume those risks. You are a sophisticated actor. So by him bypassing permits, not building things to code, cutting corners, he, as a sophisticated actor, skirted the law and decided to make money outside of the protection of the law now. And now that this person who's living in the home is just a person, just a wee little old person, they are not considered a sophisticated actor. And this is the difference in which they are measured. So surgeon guy, super smarty pants, overconfident, maybe a little bit cocky, decided to rush to make some money, and he did it the wrong way. He assumed the risk as a sophisticated actor, and now he's trying to sue somebody who's just considered to be a wee little lass. And that's why he's not winning in court, because that little person has tenant protections. He is a business. But that's just my hot take, guys. You might have a better opinion. You might have a better look at this than I do. I don't live in California. Let me know what you think. And of course, until the next video, guys, stay smart. I'll see you on the other side.